I'm going to ask you guys, I'll let you guys start on this one. What do you have for a favorite? Is there any sequences in the film that really stand out to you? Like, I've got one in mind that particularly works well for me, but is there a particular element of the story that really stands out to you that elevates this story at all in a different way?
Well, I'll say that I agree that they're all pretty much on the same level, but I feel like this one maybe is a little long. This is the longest one of the three, okay? Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel engaged 100% of the time like I did with the first two, to be honest. But what did kind of like kick it back into high gear for me at the end was the scene when Andy gives all the toys away to Bonnie. To me, that's my favorite scene because that puts such a great button on the whole trilogy and the story because like you said, Brad, like there echoes back to the original film, the open where he's like Woody's riding on his back and he's talking to her about what all these toys meant to him and what they do and all that, and that's like, oh man, they get you so much in the feels. So to me, that is my favorite scene and sequence of the film, and it ends on a very, very strong note there.
I hate to echo what was just said, but the last 15 minutes from the time they're going towards the incinerator on to the end it's all brilliant. Like that 15 minutes is almost enough for me to say this is my favorite Toy Story movie because of that 15 minutes. And it's even in the moment when the claw comes down and rescues them out, and of course it's the claw again. Perfect callback. You get Sid is their way back to the house with the truck, and again just. It's the one scene in the movie that I cried. Like I cried today watching it. And I've seen it before, and it's one of the few ones where I cry at an animated movie, and it's not because I'm being emotionally manipulated with music over top of it, like the song in the second one or the opening sequence of Up, which, you know, those are great scenes, but you get emotional when you hear Time of Your Life played with grad pictures going, right? Like, it's easy to do. For them to emotionally move you by this really human scene of giving up of these toys that meant so much to Andy as a kid, it's a really moving thing, and then to close on the clouds in the sky that are a perfect reminiscence of the clouds on the wall in Andy's room in episode one. That whole sequence. Is the movie too long? It's definitely the most bloated of the Toy Story movies. Are there some nitpicky things I can go through? Yeah, but that last 15 minutes to me is pitch perfect. I love it.
And if I can add on that real quick, Brandon, before you jump in, I agree, man. The scene in the furnace, it's like it goes on just long enough. You're like, man, are they really gonna die here? Like it could say the end and be the most depressing film of all time. You know, if you have like a Stanley Kubrick directed this, he would have ended it there, where they all burn in the furnace. And it's actually an interesting callback to Toy Story 2 because Stinky Pete kind of predicts that for their future. And then it's kind of that. It almost happens to him here, and you're like, man, like, and that's I didn't think about the music, but you're right. You know, I love how music can either be a juxtaposition or really complement what you're seeing. But the whole just like you're just in this moment with these toys, so you've loved over 3 movies, and you don't really see a way out for them. You think this is it. And they're all holding hands, and nobody says anything, right? And that shows you how far the animation has come, right? Because they don't need the expressions on their face, these CG. Characters, you feel for them, and you see everything needs to be said on their faces as they go towards what they think is the end. So,
well, when there's one shot there where they're all holding hands, and it goes from behind, looking down into the abyss of they're about to get burned, and yeah, you really think they're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they put the tension just long enough. You mentioned the music. Like, the music is fantastic. And the sequence for music that works best for me, like, I'll get back to my other sequence in a minute here, but it's when they first start playing with the kids at the daycare, and the kids are, like, just beating the heck out of the toys. And this, like, murderous rampage music is playing like Psycho. It's like reet or whatever, you know, and it's like the way that it's being shot, and the kids are abusing the toys, and it's just that last overhead shot of the kids just like running around the play area. I don't know, it just the music really, really worked well for me in that scene there. So yeah, the music is outstanding. Yeah, that last 15 minutes is really, really good. And while I love the ending, I love it really does feel like this could have been the last one, which is why I'm so surprised that there's going to be a fourth one. And I'm glad that we're doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm thrilled that it's coming, but I don't even want to guess what's coming because with, like I'd mentioned in a previous episode, I wouldn't have predicted what happened with Toy Story 2. I wouldn't have guessed what happened with Toy Story 3. These have all been really great written stories, very creative, very original. And so I don't even want to venture a guess as to what's coming in the next one.
You know, Brandon, to get onto music you mentioned there, what did you guys think of the use or lack of use of Randy Newman in this movie? Because they reused You Got a Friend in Me, which when they did that, I'm like, okay, that's a little lazy, I thought off the top. But then it kind of ends before he says, you know, we're together forever. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, okay, I see what they did there. And then actually, you don't hear him again till the credits. So that song, We Belong Together, which, by the way, won Best Original Song at the Oscars. So another piece of trivia for you there.
Is that song only played over the end at the?
Because I didn't hear it in the movie. So I just saw it over the end credits, unless I missed it somewhere. Because the other films had, you know, When She Loved Me, and Randy Newman had a couple other songs.
Yeah.
In the first one, but this one you had You Got a Friend in Me, and then nothing else.
Well, and it's not so much the lack of Newman as it is the lack of a song where there's lyrics to it. Mm-hmm. And I liked it because I find that can be a little emotionally manipulative depending on how it's used. Mm-hmm. I was fine with not having a song with lyrics in it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really realize it till the end of the movie. I was like, oh, there's another song. We haven't had one since the beginning. So it didn't bother me, but it was just an interesting change of gears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice until now that you've pointed it out that there actually isn't any songs throughout the movie. So I guess I didn't miss it. You know, that's actually an interesting point that there's no vocal songs in here. And we talked about it last time and the first time on the Toy Story ones here, where, you know, it's not a musical per se. The songs are just designed to advance the storyline and explain what the characters are thinking and feeling, rather than actually having the characters themselves sing. You know, and we referenced Tarzan was done in the same way for a Disney movie, so... But, so I want to get to my favorite sequence, and the sequence that I think worked the best for me. It was when they were escaping from the daycare, and Mr. Potato Head goes onto that tortilla. So, for me, that was spot on the best joke in the entire movie, because, you know, they've established the fact, and they established it in previous movies, that he could take his eyes and his body parts off and they could do things without being attached to the body. And so it's like, it's almost like it's the parts, and it's like this weird... You know, it opens up this idea of, like, I don't know, it's like way over the top discussion, but it's like, what's the potato and what's like the soul of this potato toy and whatnot, right? But it's like, I just love it. And then when he sticks everything in that zucchini, mm-hmm. you know, at the end because the bird attacked the tortilla, I don't know, I just love that joke. I think it works so well. It makes me laugh every time with how limp the tortilla is and how he's trying to walk around. And I don't know, that's my favorite sequence in the whole movie. I love it. I think it's great.
Good. I'm glad you went for the comedy. I know that Brad and I went for the heavy emotional stuff, Brandon. So I'm glad that we all had the different favorite scenes there. But you know, speaking of the Potato Head stuff, though, I thought it was really smart to have Miss Potato Head have her eye missing. And you think, oh, that's just to show like a passage of time and how stuff gets lost. But then it plays into the story, right? Because they don't believe Woody. They think Woody's just trying to make him feel better. Like, no, he was going to put you in the attic. It's a misunderstanding. And there's really no way for him to prove that to them. But then when, you know, Andy's clearing out his room to move out, they obviously Mrs. Potato Head's eye was behind something in some dusty, dark corner, like she said. And then they can see how Andy is talking to his mom about being upset about how the toys got missing. So I thought that was a really smart setup, something you don't really think about, but it comes back around when to kind of prove to the toys that Woody was telling the truth. Because Woody was just kind of BSing them at the beginning, like, oh, it's going to be fine, guys, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. So if I were them, I would think he was just BSing me too when he said we're going to put you in the attic, because they were like, hey, we're in a trash bag, what do you expect us to think?
Yeah, it was a really fun way to get that information to them. And it was a fun callback, again, because like they'd established that even in Toy Story 2, like Mr. Potato Head took out his eye when they were in the penthouse suite of that guy, and he put it through the heater and turned the corner and was like looking around with it, and so it's something they've established as well. So brilliant writing all around.
Well, I'd ask you guys what you think about Lotso, the villain of this story, and he had a very similar kind of origin story to Jesse from the second film. Although his man, like that was because I hadn't seen these movies until this podcast. I had seen Toy Story 1, but I never got around to 2, and then 3 came out. I was like, well, I never saw 2, and then 4 was coming out, and we were doing this. I'm like, all right, I'm finally going to watch the Toy Story movies. Now, I love the first one, big part of my childhood. I just never got around to seeing the sequels. So, I think when the one, like, oh, shit moment, to me, was when they travel home. You're like, oh, they made it home. And he goes through the window, and he sees that he has been replaced by another Lotso bear. And you're like, oh, my God. Like, that is the worst feeling. Like, because that's really smart. Because first of all, shame on her parents. His owner's parents were just leaving her toys there, like her most precious toys in the world. And then they just go, I guess they just do it like, oh, well, let's just buy her another one, whatever. Because they don't know. These toys have souls. What do they know? So that was a kind of wrinkle I hadn't really thought about, like replacing these toys with like a true replacement. Like, what if Woody and Buzz really did go missing? Would they just go buy another Buzz Lightyear for Andy? Something like that. So that's a wrinkle we hadn't really explored before, to truly be replaced like that. I thought that was a really cool twist on the whole toy goes missing, owner gets a new toy. Literally, to them, it's the same toy, but to the toy, it's not. And that's a really cool perspective thing to play with.
Brad, what do you think on that?
Very similar to Stinky Pete. As far as his both motivation and even in how he kind of comes across really nice, but turns out he's got a really evil plan that you just don't know right away. But that actually might be one of my favorite things about him is when they come in, they're welcomed by him and they feel so accepted and they're excited about it. And he does that twice, because he does that to Buzz later on, like, oh yeah, I'll let you get away with that, and we'll have you move over, but just you if you kind of serve what we want to do. It's what I kind of enjoy about him, like, he's a really dark character. Like, as far as he's basically all the new toys, you get to be our sacrificial lambs until you die, and we get another new set of toys so that we can just really enjoy luxury here. I mean, it has interesting point about society and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like
there's some classism undertones. There's all kinds of stuff you could see. Yeah,
like he's a pretty evil villain on a lot of levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Brad said, he definitely reminds me of Stinky Pete quite a bit as well. Like hurt in a different way by being a toy, like he was thrown away rather than never played with, but it's still kind of similar. But yeah, it is a very similar type of backstory as Jesse as well, right? But we've got the difference of he was able to not get over it, where Jesse was able to get over it. Mm-hmm. So.
And so that's something that I kind of caught in the flashback, but it kind of is a big kind of reveal at the end to the other toys, or to, I guess, Big Baby, right? Where he says, she replaced us all, right? But she didn't really replace them all. They could have gone back. He was the only one replaced, and he didn't tell them. And that's why Big Baby goes all Darth Vader on him at the end to his Emperor and throws him down the shaft at the end, which I thought was a good turn for that character, too.
Fun little side-related fact about Lotso Bear. He is one of the more popular character meet and greets when you go to parks at parties, and he does in fact smell like strawberries.
See,
awesome.
That classic Disney park attention to detail. Good on you, Disney. Although if the kids had seen Toy Story 3, would they really be as excited to take their picture with him? I don't know, but
me and my wife were far too excited. Far too.
Well, would you guys want him to see? Want to see him take a character turn and push that button and save them at the end, or were you glad that he kind of stayed evil? I'm kind of glad he was, because I think that was good on Woody for saving him, right? But I think it would have been too easy to like have him go 180. I'm glad he kind of stayed true to his character.
It was both Woody and him in that moment. It's true to both of their characters. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have really made sense.
Excellent. Well, one other thing that I want to talk about before we finish up here is Buzz Lightyear, and once again, we get Space Buzz. So is this too much that we got it for a third time of Space Ranger Buzz? But then we also get the twist of Mexican Buzz, which is really kind of cute and fun. Because this is we had it with the second movie of having a different toy, and that's why we got Space Buzz. But this is just another way to do it by resetting the toy to factory default. So what do you think about that, Brad?
It's fun. It works. It does feel like a rehashing, but like I said, I think the plot as a whole is kind of a rehash, and they make it work. You hardly